This is going to sound pretty unbelievable, but it scared me quite a bit. I used to live in this huge trailer house that was 60 to 100 feet from front to back. That night, everyone else was sleeping in the front of the house since we didn't have school the next day. I decided to sleep in the back by myself. I'm not what you call a psychic, but I do seem to attract weird experiences. I was up late reading a book on spirits and getting rid of them. It was around midnight when I went to bed. All evening I had a growing feeling something was wrong. I was getting more and more uneasy to the point where I was almost sick. I finally decided to go to bed and went to turn out the light. I turned it off and laid in bed. In the room I used to have, the bathroom was right across the room, directly facing the bed. I turned around so my back was facing the bathroom. As soon as I did this, I heard growling behind me. It got closer, and I heard footsteps with it. I felt this thing lean over me. I actually smelled its breath, but I didn't directly see it though. I could have chalked it up to sleep paralysis, except for one thing. As I was laying there, it either drooled or dropped some kind of sticky liquid on my head. It kept growling the whole time. Eventually, it stood up straight, and I got the impression it was really tall, like 7 or 8 feet. I had laid there, not doing anything. Then all of a sudden, a burst of courage came up, and I decided to turn around. I did this to find nothing there. I remember seeing its ears leaning over me, the sulfur-like smell it gave off. I know I didn't dream it, because when I got up, my hair was still wet and sticky from where it had drooled on me. I don't know what it was. Does anybody out there? So this was the summer of 2012, and I was probably 15 years old. I had my first job as a counselor in training at a fly fishing camp for kids at Antelope Creek Ranch, which is around the backside of Mount Shasta in California. I had attended the camp for several summers in my youth, and this was the first, or maybe the second year, I had returned as a counselor in training, since I wasn't old enough to be a counselor yet. There was one other counselor in training with me who was around my age, as well as several older counselors. So this camp takes place on private property, where there is a locked gate. It's actually ultra eerie to be rolling up to the camp at night by yourself, since you have to get out of the car twice to open and close the gate. We actually heard a cougar one night while we were locking it up coming in at the beginning of the week, though somebody was with me that time. What makes it worse is that there are no lights or anything, so you have to leave your headlights on. Then it's a couple miles down a gravel road, where there is a small lodge rented out on weekends so people can come and stay and go fishing. But that was only occupied when the kids' camp wasn't going on. So it was dark and empty most of the time we were there. A little further past the lodge and you would hit our camp. It's a bunch of big, thick cabin-like tents made out of canvas and a small clearing, along with our cookhouse. Surrounding the area is very, very dense woods in all directions. All in all, a fairly remote location. Pretty simple setup, and the darkest nights you could ever imagine. Beautiful stars, too. It was our second night of the week, and we had already had our campfire and had the kids brush their teeth and get into their cabins. A small note. The bathroom is on the backside of the cookhouse, about a 30-meter walk from the closest cabin. We had a short meeting and most of the other counselors went to the cabins they were assigned to for bed. Sky, who was the youngest of the counselors, was still sitting on the deck reading a book by a lantern. I walked around back to go brush my teeth, and when I came back to the deck to grab some of my things, I noticed Sky wasn't reading anymore. He was sitting right at the edge of his seat, eyes locked on the pitch-black forest. I was about to ask him what was wrong, but he shushed me before the words could even leave my mouth. He apologized in a whisper I could barely hear, and pointed out at something I couldn't see. My initial reaction was that he was messing with me, and I started to tell him it wasn't funny. Then he had me move so my line of sight could match his, and I saw it for the first time. There were these 3 little reflective spots deep in the trees. It was so dark. They were the first thing I noticed. "What is that?" I asked. "I don't know," Sky replied. "But they're moving. Look." Squinting through the darkness, barely able to distinguish the trees from the surrounding darkness, I could see that he was right. Only it wasn't only the lights. Surrounding them was this massive black shape, maybe the size of a grizzly bear, but up on its hind legs. That's when I saw the lights blink, and then the whole shape moved behind a large group of trees. It very much appeared that the lights were eyes, the way they blinked and reflected, only that there were 3 of them in the shape of an equilateral triangle. At this point, Michael, who was the other counselor in training, comes out to the men's bathroom and looks equally confused and intrigued by us pointing our flashlights out at the woods. As if on cue, we hear the most horrifying sound I have ever heard in my entire life. The only way I can describe it is like an amplified snake hiss coming out of a coyote. I was scared. I tripped over a board on the deck trying to scramble into the little cookhouse kitchen. We sat in there for almost 30 minutes, panicking and telling Michael what we saw. He thought we might have seen some reflective tape on a sign, or a cow that escaped a nearby field, but couldn't explain the sound. We finally got ourselves together and went back out there to look again. We pointed our flashlights at the spot we saw it before, and there it still was, barely visible, just outside the range of our lights, moving occasionally, just behind a tree, only to peer out at us a moment later. At times it sounded like it was moving closer, but it was hard to be sure. Michael saw it that time. We had all seen it. We went back into the cookhouse again. By 3:30 a.m., we checked on it and retreated back into the cookhouse at least 5 or 6 times because we were so unsettled that it was always there and it hadn't moved on. We even tried yelling at it one point. It seemed like it was waiting, or it was watching us. I think it knew we were trying to see it, and it didn't seem to care too much. At some point, we decided that we just had to get back to the cabins we were all supposed to be in. So the plan was we would just run as fast as we could to the cabins without turning our heads to look into the woods. If we don't look at it, it's not there, right? It worked great. We finally got to our beds. I was in the girls' cabin and the other 2 went to the boys' one. So, I'm lying there, unable to sleep, thinking about all the weird things we just saw out there. An hour or so goes by, and I still can't sleep. All of a sudden, I hear footsteps coming through the gravel. The footsteps came right up to the side of the canvas tent. Literally, whatever was out there is standing 4 inches away from me, only separated by this thin layer of fabric. I wait for them to walk away, or come into the tent, or call out to me, or do anything. But they never walked away, just silence. I waited another hour, maybe more. There is no way anybody could walk through the gravel without the whole campsite hearing, and I know they walked right up next to me and never walked away. It felt like I had just fallen asleep when I was woken up by some loud gunshots. They sounded close, but not right in our camp or anything. Safe to say, I didn't sleep anymore that morning. That morning, I asked the guys if they heard any of the gunshots, and they did. We also went to go check out the spot of the woods where we thought we saw the thing lurking around. There was nothing reflective, no strange hulking items, but behind the large group of trees, there was this freshly dug pit into hell. I mean, this hole was like 4 feet wide and at least 10 feet deep before it looked like it turned. We didn't have any evidence of a shovel, and the ground was too covered with pine needles for us to find any good prints, human or animal. We were so creeped out we genuinely didn't know how to react after we saw that. By the end of the week, the hole had been partially filled in. Not by any of us, I might mention. The other counselors totally made fun of us when we told them we thought we saw something strange. They jumped to the conclusion that we thought we saw Bigfoot or something, when in reality, I have truly no idea what we saw. I returned to the camp year after year and never saw or heard anything quite like that. Michael also returned for several years and would refuse to keep his back turned to the particular spot in the woods at night. We talked about it a few years later, and everything he describes still matches what I think I saw. I just wish we had an explanation. I'll be honest, I almost never believe anyone's story about seeing mythical creatures or monsters, and wouldn't believe this story if I told myself it from another perspective. However, the only reason I think I actually did see something was because my friends saw the same thing, and verified my eyes weren't just playing tricks on me. We were driving home from a friend's. She was the driver, and I was the passenger, around 1:30 a.m. Going around 35 miles per hour, I see a figure standing completely still on the side of the road, and just looking across, not moving. It was thin and relatively tall, pale skin, hunched over slightly, had dark black pits for eyes, and no mouth, stringy long hair, wearing clothes like a tattered coat or hoodie thing, and here's the really strange feature, its legs were jointed backwards, like a cricket. But it was standing straight up. Imagine your own legs slightly bent, but the bend is reversed. This really freaked me out because I saw it and immediately turned to my friend, the driver, and she had a look of pure shock and fear. Also, and at the moment, we both realized we saw it. We were so scared, we sped up and didn't look back. This is a long story of how I met and believed in this creature. All this happened in 2017 in the village of Berzoka, Russia. And it all started with one video that was sent to me by one person who claimed to have met with him and said that he had shot it. This village is not so far from the city of the person who sent the video. I uploaded a video yesterday, but someone did not believe it was real. When I saw this video in 2017, I also thought it was fake. But we had a chance to check this place out, where it was. It was filmed 2016 in September, and we went there February 2017. This is the place where the creature was filmed. There were several of us, and we arrived by car. 2 of us stayed in the car, and 2 of us went to the building. Suddenly, my friend noticed movement in a window on the 2nd floor. He told me. I looked, and there really was some movement. We immediately called to the 2 of us, who went to the building, and say that we noticed something on the 2nd floor. We went to the place where there was movement, and began to look, and nothing happened, and then they went inside the building. After some time, we see a white head peek out from the corner of the window. It looked out and hid twice. We were scared and called the guys in the building. We told them to run there, and we see it, and it's following us. The guys decided to go where we saw it on the 2nd floor. They went there and began to walk, but didn't see anyone or anything. We then see it crawl out and freeze, then crawls from another window and climbs onto the roof in a split second. It was a long, elongated pale gray color. We immediately realized that this is not some typical animal, and it expertly crawled along the wall and did it very quickly. Then we went back there again, a few days later. This time, it was even cooler. My friend walked and looked near the building, and he saw from around the corner its long arms, and he got scared and ran away. Then we sat in the car again, and suddenly, again, we all see how it looks out from the window on the 2nd floor. It looked out of the window and froze. We shined on it with lights, but it wasn't frightened and jumped down as we understood it, then buried itself in the snow. After that, there was nothing left. We walked, but it didn't appear. The only thing was that when we were near the building, we heard strange sounds like croaking mixed with a burping man. Then when I seriously got interested in it, I found out that not only we saw it in the building, and yet there is one place in this abandonment where it smelled like a lot of bone debris. As we think, this is why this creature's most likely lived there. This picture is the closest to what we saw. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. And if you have an experience or a story to tell, feel free to email me at the address listed in the description. And remember, hell is empty and the devils are here.